So good afternoon all. So this is the first lab session we are having in the fourth semester. I hope in the regular lab sessions before lockdown, some 3 to 4 experiments are covered. One batch covered 4 experiments and one batch covered 3, I think. Okay. So there were 7 experiments in the first cycle, out of which there are 2 experiments were the add-on experiments. Okay. Our wall Leonard system and speed control of 3-phase induction motor. So as of now, for this entire semester, we will not be doing add-on experiments because from the university, the instruction has come that we should be covering 75% of experiment at least. Okay. So already 3 to 4 experiments are covered. Here our intention is to discuss the experiments theoretically. Okay. I can't do practical, or anybody can't do practical experiments online, especially in machines lab. Okay. In other circuit labs you can do with simulation tools, but for machines lab it is difficult to do the physical experiment of the machines on the machines. Okay. So what we are advised to deal with the lab sessions is at least we should give you the theoretical aspects of the experiment, the procedure, how we are taking the readings, and 1 or 2 calculations, how we move ahead with the calculations, and if there are any characteristics or graphs for that particular experiment, we should be discussing the graphs and characteristics also, how they vary. Okay, so that is the main aim of taking the lab sessions online. Okay, only this machines lab is pending with online lab sessions. All other practicals of higher semester, and I think your OPAMP lab is also going online. Few of 1 or 2 experiments I think you did in simulation tool, but unfortunately we could not do in simulation tool with these labs. I tried with virtual laboratories, but virtual laboratories links what we have which are been provided by NITs and IITs, they don't have the experiments what we have in our syllabus. Okay, those are altogether different experiments. So even if we go through those virtual labs, for our syllabus it is of no use. Okay. So I thought I will take the theoretical aspects, and today I thought first we'll start with the simplest experiment, Swinburne's test. Okay, first simplest experiment, Swinburne test. Okay, so we know that there are various testings. Okay, test or testing of machines. What is the main aim of testing of machines? Why we have to test it? Okay, so first we define the requirement. Okay, first we define the requirement. What is the requirement of the machine where we are applying? That we call it as specification. That requirement we will give to the designer. So designer will design the machine for its main dimensions, its performance and everything. That design which is designed by the designer will move to the manufacturer. That manufacturer will manufacture or fabricate the machine. Now the customer has given some requirements, okay, and manufacturer had fabricated the machine. Now whether the requirements given by the customer is been met by the machine which is fabricated or not has to be known, and that process is called testing. Okay, so testing is done on every product. Testing is done on every product that gets fabricated or manufactured. Okay, but our intention of testing here electrical machine is not to know entirety of the performance. Fundamentally, any test you have, I think in theory many of the tests have been covered already. In all the tests there is one common thing you have done. Okay, whether the tests were direct tests or indirect tests, one common thing was done in all the tests, that you calculated efficiency. Okay, that was the ultimate aim of getting the test results. How did you calculate efficiency? Because if the test is direct, like our load test, directly I took a ratio of output to input, I got efficiency. But there are some indirect tests like Swinburne's test and no load test on induction motor. There we did not actually took the output, but still we calculated the efficiency there. How did we do that? We did it by knowing their losses. Okay, See, the main aim of testing of any machine, whether it is an indirect test or direct test, directly will get efficiency. All other tests other than direct tests is to find the losses of the machine. Okay, so aim of testing, okay, or motive of testing, not aim, motive of test is to find losses. Motive of test is to find losses. Okay, so once I know the loss, constant loss and variable loss, I can simply consider the different load conditions of the machine and I can get the efficiency of the machine. Okay, so this is the reason why we go for testings. Now what is loss? Briefly we will see what are these things and then we will move to the actual Swinburne test. Now what are loss? Losses. Okay, losses is that part of the input power that the machine will take for its operation. Output is for the load, but machine has to operate, so it has to overcome its requirements. See, I eat food. Whatever the amount of food I take, that complete food is not converted into the work done by me. My body will take some amount of energy out of that food what I eat. Okay, so if I take the amount of output available and amount of food I ate, it will be amount of output available will be less. The work done by me will be lesser than the energy I gained through my food, because some energy from my food what I ate is taken by my body, because my body has to live, it has to be alive. Like that, any machine, when I provide input power, it has to be operating, and to operate any machine, it has its own power requirement. So after that power requirement, whatever the power is available, that is my output. The machine that which consumes the power out of the input, we call it as loss. So generally loss is nothing but the power consumed by the machine itself. Power consumed by the machine in the sense, okay, to overcome its requirements. What are the losses it has to overcome, or the power requirements it has to overcome? The copper losses in the copper, iron losses in the core, okay, and mechanical losses in the bearings. Okay, so a rotating machine has got three types of losses. Okay, rotating machine has got three types of losses. Okay, one is conduction loss or electrical loss. Second is magnetic loss. Third is mechanical loss. So rotating machine has got three types of losses: conduction loss, mechanical loss and magnetic loss. What are conduction loss? These are the losses that occur due to the conduction of the current. These are the losses that occur, name itself will suggest. These are the losses that occur due to the conduction of the current. What are the losses that occur due to conduction of current? It is I square R loss. That is copper loss. So copper losses are known as conduction losses. If there is no current, no copper loss. Okay. What are magnetic loss? Again the name suggests. The losses that occur in the machine due to the magnetic field. The losses that occur in the machine due to the magnetic field. Okay. So where does the magnetic field is existing? The magnetic field is existing in the core or the iron part. Hence these are core loss or iron loss. Okay. Conduction losses are due to the conduction of the current, that is copper loss. Magnetic losses are due to the magnetic field that is existing in the core, that is due to core loss or copper loss. Third, mechanical loss. Mechanical loss, again it is due to the mechanical operation of the machine. Okay. What is mechanical operation? Rotation. Okay, mechanical losses will exist in the machine only when there is rotation in the machine. Now when there is a rotation in the machine, what are the losses we get? Mechanical losses, friction and windage loss. Friction and windage loss. Now where does friction loss occur and where does windage loss occur? Friction, very straightforwardly understood. Friction will exist in a point where there is a contact between stationary part and the rotating part. Where there is contact between stationary part and the rotating part, there is frictional loss. And where it is existing? It is existing in the bearing. Okay? So if you consider this ball bearing, okay, so this is the shaft on which the bearing is connected, and this outer race is connected to the stator. Okay, so inner race of the bearing is free to rotate, outer race of the bearing is restricted and connected to the stator. So where is there is a friction? The friction is existing here in the balls or in the rollers. If we are using larger machines will use roller bearings. Okay, in smaller and medium machines we use ball bearings. Now here there is a friction, there is a constant friction between the inner race, the ball and the outer race, though there is lubrication. Okay, so this is where the frictional losses exist. Okay, so friction losses exist in the bearings. Then where does the windage loss exist? Windage loss doesn't exist in winding. Please remember this. Windage loss doesn't exist in winding. Windage loss is existing where there is a window in the machine. Okay, where there is window in the machine, there the windage loss exists. And where is the window in the machine? The window in the machine is existing between stator and rotor, that is air gap. So windage loss exists in the air gap. Now the question is, how come the air gap contains mechanical losses? Because there is no contact between the stator and the rotor in the air gap. Then why there is windage loss in the air gap? Okay, so windage loss in the air gap is due to the friction between the rotor and the air in the air gap. Please remember this. Don't think that air will not give any opposition for the moving body. Okay, air has got substantial potential to oppose the moving body. Why it is not observed outside? Because outside the space is very large. Outside the space is very large. So when I move, so for example I am moving in my vehicle. When I move my vehicle in the air on the road, no doubt the vehicle will have a friction between the air and its front body. But when the vehicle will come in contact with the air in the space, the air has got a large space to get distributed. So the friction is not much observed there or not much effective. But whereas in air gap, the air gap between stator and rotor, you won't believe, is not more than 1 or 2 mm. The largest of the machine will be having air gap not more than 3 to 4 or 5 mm. Largest of the machine I am talking. The machines which are in hundreds of kilowatts of rating, the air gap between stator and rotor will not be more than 3 to 4 mm or 2 to 3 mm. Okay, this you will study in the next semester design, machine design subjects. Okay, so here the air that is present in the air gap is in a very restricted space. Therefore, when the rotor starts rotating, in that restricted space of air gap, air has got enough potential to oppose the rotation, and therefore there is a friction between the rotor and the air in the air gap. This is called windage loss. Windage loss, don't get misconceptualized that windage loss will exist in winding. No, windage loss is a part of mechanical loss. Okay, mechanical loss will occur due to mechanical operation. So when there is a friction between rotor and the air in the air gap, that loss, the energy lost due to that is called windage loss. So these are the three types of losses we get in the rotating machine. In transformer, I don't get mechanical loss, I get only conduction loss and magnetic loss, because there is no moving part, therefore there is no mechanical loss. Okay, so these are the different types of losses we get. So out of these losses, some of the losses will remain constant, some of the losses will be variable. Conduction losses are always variable losses. Conduction losses are always variable losses, whereas magnetic losses are constant losses. Conduction losses are always variable losses, magnetic losses are always constant losses. Then what about mechanical losses? Mechanical losses, whether to be considered as constant loss or variable loss, depends upon the motor, whether the motor is a constant speed motor or a variable speed motor. Okay? If the motor is a constant speed motor, my mechanical losses will remain constant. If motor is a variable speed motor, then my mechanical losses will remain variable. Okay? So this is the concept of losses. One loss is always variable, one loss is always constant, one loss depends upon the speed of the motor. Okay? So for DC motor, mechanical losses we assume to be constant. Why? Because DC motor is assumed to be constant speed motor. The flux is remaining constant, N is inversely proportional to phi. Therefore, as flux remains constant, my speed remains constant. Hence, I consider mechanical losses to be a part of constant losses. Okay? So this is all about losses, and we are interested to find these losses, though I may not get separately magnetic and mechanical losses, but I can calculate in the form of constant loss in a Swinburne's test. Okay? So why we test the machines? We test the machines to know its performance. Okay? In some tests I can directly get the efficiency, in some tests I calculate efficiency by knowing the losses. But once I know the losses, it is always useful for me. I can keep those losses as standard losses. Okay? Then I can mention the standard efficiency of the machine with standard operating conditions. Okay? So this is the main motive of conducting various tests on the machines. Okay? Testing is done on every machine. Don't think that it is done only on the motors. It will be done on generators also. It will be done on transformers also. It will be done on anything that is fabricated. Okay? So even if you take this duster and this chalk, testing is done on these two products also. Okay? When these are newly fabricated, they will test for its physical strength. They will test for various aspects. Testing will depend upon the type of product. Okay? So this is all about the losses and testing of the machine. Okay? So next we will actually go to Swinburne's test. So Swinburne's test is testing is again of two types. I already mentioned it. Okay, it can be a direct test and indirect test. Direct test or indirect test. Okay, so direct test means I am applying the load. Direct test means I am applying the load. Okay, indirect test means I am not applying the load. So in the last semester you studied transformers OCSC test. In OCSC test of transformer we never applied the load there. So that was an indirect method of testing the transformer. Okay, and in this semester you did, some of the batches did, some of the groups did the load test on induction motor, single phase and three phase and DC motor. So there we actually applied the brake load on the motor, we varied the brake load, observed the power, speed, and we calculated the output power, then we took the efficiency. That is called direct method, because there I am directly applying the load to the motor. Okay, so but this Swinburne's test is indirect method. Okay, so this is an indirect test. Indirect test to be conducted on only shunt and compound motor. Shunt and compound machine. It is compulsory. I can't do Swinburne's test on series machine. Okay, why? Because it is an indirect method. So I will not load the motor while testing, and series motor cannot be started without load. Okay, N is inversely proportional to phi. Okay, so for shunt machine, N is inversely proportional to voltage, because flux, remember one thing, flux in any machine is always proportional to voltage. Okay, this is for shunt. For series, N is inversely proportional to Ia, because field winding is in series with the armature winding. If there is load, then only there is armature current. If there is no armature current, there is no flux. So, if the machine is at no load, my Ia will become 0 and speed will become infinite. So, never I should be starting my series motor at no load condition. It will reach very large speed. Infinite speed in the sense, if the motor rating is around 1500 rpm, the speed at no load it may reach around 7 to 8000 rpm, which is dangerous for the strength of the shaft, not strength of the shaft actually, dangerous for the windings actually. If there is a very excessively large speed, the windings may fly out from the slots. Okay, so we can't start the series motor at no load. Therefore, Swinburne test is not for series motors. It is only for shunt and compound motors. Okay, but generally we do it for shunt motor. Okay. Now the circuit diagram for this. I will draw the lab circuit diagram itself. So some first part of the recording is missed because memory was full. I did not delete my mornings and yesterday's lecture videos of your higher semester classes. Okay. So from here the recording will start. I will share both the files. Okay. This video and that video both I will share in the group. Recorded video on Google Meet and recorded video in my mobile phone also. Both I will share. So now let us. We have this rheostat. Now if the connection is between A and B, okay, if the connection is between A and B, the minimum position of the resistance or the cutout position of the resistance will be if the slider, okay, let us take slider S, this slider S is near to terminal A. So current will enter terminal A, it will enter the slider, okay. From slider it will move to the wire and it will exit from B. So this part of the wire, resistive wire, is not included in the circuit. It means that the rheostat is at minimum resistance position or cutout position. Now if the connection is between A and B, if the terminals connected are A and B, and if the slider is at position C, okay, if the slider is on the other end, then current will enter A, flow through the wire and exit, or it will enter the slider bar. It will enter the slider bar from A, it will flow through slider to the wire and it will exit from B. So the entire wire will come into the circuit, hence that is called cutting position or maximum resistance position. Okay. Now if I use connections A and C, okay, then if the slider is near to C, it is minimum resistance position. Current will enter A, move through slider bar and move through slider to the last turn and come out. So this part of the wire is not included in the circuit, hence the resistance of that wire is not included. It is cutout or minimum resistance position. With connections AC, if the slider is near terminal A, Current will enter to terminal A, to the bar, to the slider. It will flow through all the wire and exit in C, that is cutting position or maximum resistance position. Okay, so this is the connection of rheostat. So I should ensure that resistance or the field rheostat is kept at minimum or cutout position. Okay. Third, close the supply switch. I should close the supply switch and start the motor using 3-point starter. Start the motor using 3-point starter. In 3-point starter we have a slider. Again I have a lever and I should move this lever handle from left to right. At the left point there is maximum resistance position of the starter. At the right point it is minimum resistance position of the starter. Now why we need a starter? It is not that without starter I cannot start the motor. Without starter, if I eliminate this and connect directly to armature, motor will start. There is not requirement of 3-point starter here. There is no requirement of 3-point starter. I use starter for induction motor and DC motor not to assist the starting mechanism. Starting mechanism can be achieved in induction and DC motor without starters also. But the use of starter is used to limit the starting current. A large starting current is drawn by any motor. It is not true with only induction or DC, it is true with synchronous motor also. Because synchronous motor is always started as induction motor, then run as synchronous motor. Okay? So any motor when started will draw large amount of current because it has to overcome its moment of inertia. It has to overcome its inertia to achieve the torque because it has to provide or supply to the starting torque. Starting torque is always larger than running torque. Okay, so to get that starting torque, current drawn is more because torque is always proportional to current. It is proportional to product of flux and current. Flux is remaining constant here. Therefore, it is depending on current. So if large starting torque is required, large current is received from the source. Therefore, the current drawn by the source suddenly increases at the starting and after some time it will come back. Once the speed reached by the motor is around 50 to 60% of its maximum speed, the current drops back to the no load current or minimum current value. To avoid this large inrush of current, only at the initial point I use additional resistance connected in the circuit. So the lever, when I move it from left to all of you have used this lever in previous lab and this lab, last sem and this sem. So when I move the lever from left to right, the left point is maximum resistance position, right point is minimum resistance position. So I am moving the resistance of the starter from maximum to minimum. By the time I move from left to right, the speed achieved by the motor is above 50 to 60% and the current has come back to its minimum value. Without starter, the current may reach around 4 to 5 times of its full value. With starter, it may reach hardly twice. So that is the effect of using starter. So this 3-point starter, 3-point, LFA, there are 3 points. Okay, 3-point starter will assist us to help the start of the motor. Okay, through 3-point starter. So close the supply switch and start the motor using 3-point starter. The moment I start the motor, the rotor starts rotating. Check the speed using tachometer. Okay, using tachometer, check the speed. If the speed is 1500 rpm, then you take the readings. If the speed is not 1500 rpm, I should make the speed 1500 rpm. See, I can vary speed by varying input voltage. Okay, but input voltage is constant. I cannot vary speed without with varying the input voltage. It is a constant value. So I can vary speed by varying the flux because the speed is inversely proportional to flux. N is inversely proportional to flux. Okay, if I decrease the flux, the speed increases. So if the speed when I turn on the motor is less than 1500 rpm, decrease the flux by increasing the resistance. Now rheostat is kept at minimum position, slightly start increasing it, the flux starts decreasing because this is proportional to field current, IF or ISH. Okay, you can take ISH. Okay, so to decrease field current, I should increase the resistance. So when I start increasing the rheostat position, field current starts decreasing, speed start increasing. I should do this until the rated current is reached. Okay. Bring the motor to rated speed using field rheostat. Once the motor reaches its rated speed, then note down the readings of all the meters. Then serial number 1, voltage will show 220 volts. Line current will not be now 13.3 amperes. It will be hardly 2 or 2.5 amperes. So let us take it as 2.5 amperes. Field current may be around 0.5 amperes. Okay. Therefore IA. Okay, if you want, you can connect another ammeter in the armature. There is no harm. Okay. So IA is equal to IL minus ISH. It will be 2 amperes. So this is the reading. Okay. IA naught. This is no load armature current. IA naught. This is the reading. Okay. So this we obtained the reading. Then I need to find out the losses. Okay, I will drop the procedure. So in calculation part, I need to first find out the constant losses. Okay. So constant losses. So constant losses equals to WC is equals to no load input. This is I naught, IL naught. No load input minus no load copper loss. No load input minus no load copper loss. Okay. See, copper loss is variable. The no load copper losses are very less because no load current is very less, and no load copper losses are completely negligible in transformers. Okay, but I can't neglect it in motors because to supply the starting torque, motors will never take very less current. They will take considerable amount of current. Okay, at no load. So constant losses. Which are the constant losses? We categorized losses into 3: conduction loss, magnetic loss, mechanical loss. So for a DC shunt motor, I took constant loss and mechanical loss to be constant. Magnetic loss and mechanical loss to be constant. Conduction loss are variable losses in every machine. So whatever the input I am giving at no load, large part of that input is satisfied only for the losses. The no load input drawn by any machine is for losses only because output is 0. I haven't connected any load here to this motor. Therefore, output provided to the load by the motor is 0. So, whatever the power it is receiving from the source, it is completely consumed by the motor itself. And the power consumed by the motor is a loss for me. So, whatever the input power I am getting is completely the loss power at no load. You should remember this. Whatever the input power I am getting at no load by any machine, whether it is transformer, DC motor, induction motor. Okay. If there is no output connected and the motor is connected or machine is connected to the source and it is drawing some power, that entire power drawn at no load is a loss because there is no output. Okay. Load is not there, output is not there. Therefore, it is loss. Now, whatever the loss I am getting at no load, it is the combination of constant loss and small amount of variable loss. Why small amount of variable loss? The current is very small. 2.5 amperes is very small when compared to 13.3 amperes. Okay? Hardly some around 20% you can consider. Therefore, out of these total losses, which are constant loss plus variable loss, now the loss which I am getting, okay, from the input is conduction loss plus magnetic loss plus mechanical loss. But I know what are constant loss. Constant loss are only magnetic and mechanical. Now I have to reduce or deduct the conduction loss. Okay, so constant loss is no load input is nothing but my total loss minus no load copper losses, the variable losses at no load. If I deduct variable losses at no load, I get constant losses, and these constant losses will remain constant forever for the operation of this motor. Whether the load changes, remains load 0, maximum, overload, my constant losses will remain constant. So WC is equals to, what is no load input? Vin into I naught or IL naught. Okay, VL into IL naught. I think it is I naught in the manual. I naught minus no load copper losses, I naught square into RA. I naught square into RA. Now I should be knowing what is the resistance of the armature. Resistance of the armature can be found out in two ways, either by VI method or by using multimeter. Okay, but in both the cases I should remove all the connections to the armature. I never should calculate the resistance of the winding, whether armature or field, with any other connections present in the circuit. So I should first disconnect the entire circuit, then check the resistance of the motor. And when should I check? Before the conduction or after the conduction? That is important. For Swinburne's test, that is important. Should I test the resistance of the motor before the conduction or after the conduction? This RA is nothing but my hot resistance. Hot resistance of the armature. If I conduct or if I test the resistance of the motor before conduction, then that value of resistance obtained should be multiplied by some factor which will take the heat generated in the armature into account. Okay, that is one way. Second way is, after the conduction of the experiment, when the motor is running, automatically the armature winding will heat up slightly. Then I can take the armature resistance, that is called hot resistance. But to take actually the hot resistance of the armature, I simply cannot run the motor for 1 or 2 minutes, obtain the readings and switch off and then calculate. At least some 15 to 20 minutes I should run the motor at no load. Then the resistance what I calculate in the armature is actually the hot resistance. But in the lab we don't do that, unfortunately. Suddenly, because the same machine is shared by the speed control people also, suddenly after the conduction is over, I note down the resistance. Okay, so that is the not wrong way, incorrect way, incomplete way of finding the RA. Actually, to find RA of the Swinburne's test, if you don't want to multiply factor, know its temperature, everything, simply run the motor at no loads from 15 to 20 minutes, check the resistance after that, disconnecting the circuit. That is hot resistance. Okay, so now I assume that I have noted down the hot resistance also. So RA in ohms, let it comes out to be some 3.2 ohms. RA is 3.2 ohms. Okay, it won't be actually that should not be so high, but it will come in the range of 2.5 to 4 ohms for any machine we have in the lab. Okay, now this is equals to 220 into 2.5 minus IA naught is 2 square into 3.2. So this will come out to be WC is equals to 537.2 watts. 537.2 watts. So this is constant loss, which will remain constant throughout the operation of the motor. Okay, throughout the operation of the motor. Next, efficiency of motor. Efficiency as motor. See whether the machine is motor or generator, Swinburne test is conducted on motor only, as motor only. Okay. I will calculate the constant loss making the machine run as motor. Then I will predetermine the efficiency of the same machine if it is run as motor and when it is run as generator. Okay, the equations will change, that's it. Losses will remain same. Now, efficiency as motor. So for a motor, the electrical input is known. Mechanical output is not known because it is a no load test. Okay, so efficiency of motor is equals to, okay, output by input into 100. This is equals to, output is what? Input minus losses divided by input. Okay, so what is input? Or this I can type Wi, okay, minus Wm is losses in motor, W by Wi. Now what is Wm? Motor losses, Wc plus Wcu in motor. Constant losses plus copper losses in motor. Okay. Wc we know. What is Wc in motor? Copper losses in motor. It is Ia square into Ra. And what is Ia? Ia is equals to IL minus ISH. That is 13.3 minus 0.5 is my Ia. 12.8 amps. So Ia is 12.8 amps. Okay. Now motor losses, WCU motor is given by 12.8 square into 3.2. $524.3 watts. Okay. Therefore, total losses in motor Wm is equals to copper constant losses. Constant losses we got equals to how much? I just rubbed it, I think. Wc I will note down here. $537.2 watts. So Wm is 537.2 plus 524.3. So motor losses are 1061.5 watts. Therefore efficiency of motor, okay, so Win is equals to Win is 220 into 13.3 minus, okay, losses, that is 1061.5 divided by 220 into 13.3 into 100. Okay. So it is 63.72%. Don't worry about the value of efficiency, you just see the process, okay, process of finding the efficiency. Okay. Now this is the efficiency at full load because I considered the full load current. Okay. So for for motor using Swinburne's test, I can calculate the efficiency of motor at full load only. Okay. Why I will tell. Why can't I divide that 13.3 amperes by 2 and take as half the full load condition? I can't do that for a motor because the no load current of the motor is not zero. I can take the load condition on any machine as percentage of full load current only if the no load current of that machine becomes zero, and that is true only with generators and transformers. I can't do with motors because even at no load the current drawn by the motor is around 20% of its line current, full load current. So when the current drawn by the motor is 2.5 amperes, I can't say motor is at 20% of load condition because load is not connected to motor at all. But then also there is current drawn by the motor. Therefore, line current divided by 2 will not give 50% load condition. Line current multiplied by 8.8 will not give 80% of load condition. So what best I can do in Swinburne's test is simply keep only one calculation for motor at full load. That's it. If you divide the current by 2, by 3/4, by 1/4 and calculate the efficiency, that is not correct for the motor. Okay. Next. Okay. Efficiency of generator. Efficiency of generator. For a generator, I know the electrical output. Okay. So efficiency is given by output divided by input. It is common, but here I will not. I don't write input minus losses. I will write here output divided by output plus losses. Output divided by output plus losses. Now what is output of generator? Or I will write this as W out divided by W out plus Wg. So what is W out is equals to VL into IL, 220 into 13.3. Now the current, that is line current for motor 13.3 will become the load current for generator, that is 13.3. Okay. So VL into IL, that is 220 into 13.3. You will get some value here. I will write it. 2926 watts. Okay, 2926 watts. Now for a generator, if the load is zero, line current is also zero. Okay, I will tell once we do this at full load. Okay. Output. Okay, a generator, the first case at full load. So only I take IL is equals to 13.3. Okay. Next, what is loss? Wg is equals to constant loss plus copper loss at full load. Constant loss at copper loss at full load, or copper loss for generator. This is constant loss plus copper loss is Ia square Ra. Now what is Ia for generator? It is IL plus ISH. Okay. This is for generator. Motor circuit diagram is there. For generator, I will not draw emitters and all. I just want to show you. Now this is Ia, which is coming out of the armature. Generator will give out the power. Okay. Ia, this is ISH, and this is IL. This is VL. Okay. So IL is line current. This is load. This is VL. Okay. So now, what is IA? IA is the sum of IL and ISH. You apply KCL here. So IL plus ISH. So that is 13.3 plus 0.5. It is 13.8. And copper losses are equals to, here only I will write copper losses. Sorry. So Wg is equals to, I will not waste space. It is 537.2. Constant loss is constant for entire machine when operating motor or when operating a generator. Plus it is 13.8 square into 3.2. So this will be 537.2 plus 13.8 square into 3.2. It is 1146.6 watts. Therefore, efficiency at full load is equals to, what is full load output? 2926 divided by 2926 plus 1146.6. Is 71.84%. 71.84%. So this is full load efficiency of the generator. Now I can have half load efficiency, partial load efficiency, 1/4 load, 3/4 load, whatever. Why? Because now if I disconnect the load, for the generator, my IL becomes 0. Don't worry about IA, worry about IL. If I disconnect the load, my IL becomes 0. Okay? The moment IL becomes 0, it is a no load current. If the load is maximum rated, IL becomes rated current, 13.3 amperes. If the load is 50% of rated, IL becomes 13.3 into 50%. So this concept is used in case of generators and transformers, but not motors. Now, efficiency of generator at half the full load. And now you should be careful, okay? Because many of you people will make mistake in calculating the losses, okay, at half the full load. Second case, at half the full load. So efficiency at half the full load is again output by input. I will write it as W out half divided by W out half plus losses, okay, Wg half the full load. Okay. Now what is W out half the full load? Is equals to 220 into, or formula I will write, VL into IL half the full load. I should not take IA by 2. It should be IL by 2. IL half the full load, that is 220 into 13.3 by 2. Okay. So 220 into 13.3 by 2. 1463. This is my output, watts. Losses is equals to, constant loss will remain same, so only these are known as constant losses, plus copper losses at half the full load. So copper losses at half the full load is given by IA at half the full load square into RA, where IA at half the full load is equals to IL at half the full load minus ISH, sorry, plus ISH. ISH will not change because it is parallel to the armature. ISH will remain same. This is equals to, now IA at half the full load is 13.3 by 2. (6.65) plus 0.5. Okay, it is 7.05. Sorry, 7.15 I think. 7.15 amperes. Okay. Now using this you calculate the losses. Now Wg is equals to, at half the full load, is constant loss is same 537.2 plus 7.15 square into 3.2. It is 700.8 watts. Okay, this is Wg at half. Now what is efficiency? Efficiency at half the full load is equals to, I will write here, output is 1463 divided by 1463 plus 700.8. Is 67.6%. 67.6%. So this is how you have to calculate the efficiency of generator in Swinburne's test at any load. Now simply if you take 25%, multiply this line current IL by 0.25, 13.3 into 0.25, 75%, 13.3 into 0.75, 80%, 13.3 into 0.8, 90%, 13.3 into 0.9. Any percentage of load you can calculate. But you have to take that load current consideration into output also. Many a times what mistake you people will do is, output you will take VL into IL 13.3, but in calculating the losses you do it by taking the half the load current. The efficiency will be more than full load efficiency. Okay, so it won't happen. Okay? So you should be careful about these aspects. So this is all about the Swinburne's test. Okay, that we conduct in the lab. I hope the things are clear. Okay, and these are useful to you people. Any doubts you think you are having, you please can message me, or you can send me a voice message also, you can send me a text message also, any doubts you are having. Okay, and you can call me also, okay, if possible. So this is all about Swinburne test in the lab. Okay, so in the next lab session I will take up one more experiment. Okay, probably I will take the load test on a 3-phase motor, induction motor, because some observation has to be done in the 3-phase induction motor. Okay, so I will try to take 3-phase induction motor experiment in the next lab session. Okay, probably Monday not possible. Why? Because you are having the online quiz test. Maybe next Wednesday itself. Okay, so hope these are the contents are understandable for you people. You can repeat this any number of times once you get the lecture video to you. Okay, so we'll end here. Okay? In the next lab session we will discuss the further things. Okay, thank you for joining. Okay, any doubts you have, you please get back to me. Okay, any doubts you just text me or mail me or send a voice message or call me. Okay, I will clear the doubts. Okay, thank you for joining.